Goodbye, beard. So I think that a lot of us can agree that studying in school, public school, academia, was not fun. And it might have dissuaded a lot of us from continuing any sort of education once we had graduated. It was sort of like, thank goodness I have reached this goalpost, and now I am moving on with my life. And never have to go back to the rigorous process of rote memorization and then being tested on my abilities in that rote memorization. There's something wonderful about being an adult, how you can just read a book because you're genuinely interested in it. And if in the middle of it you find that you've pretty much gotten the gist of it, you don't need it anymore, you find it's not interesting you find it's not relevant, for whatever reason, you can stop. I think that is a wonderful freedom that we have as an adult that we did not have in school. The problem is there's a bit of a paradox of choice to the whole thing that we can end up being so saturated with information every single place that we don't even know where to start. And if we crack open a book, like I can do, sometimes don't feel as compelled to finish it because we know we're not going to be tested on it. Again, maybe a good thing that we're just doing it for our own personal enjoyment, but it does mean that there's not as much pressure to make sure that we actually retain what information we're exposing ourselves to. That's been most of the way that I've experienced books that I've read in the last handful of years. And again, maybe it increases my enjoyment to some degree, but there is also this feeling of like untapped potential of like, man, but I would like to get back to some level of rigorous. I am reading a book to retain as much information of it as possible. I did something really interesting recently. In the world of Joe having way too many interests, I started thinking about what if I constructed my own self-discipline PhD process, wherein I just read the kind of books that you would need to, and then ended up writing a big mock, what do you call it, thesis, dissertation, as though I was studying in academia so that I could get the knowledge without having to pay thousands of dollars for a PhD that probably doesn't actually return me any material value. Is that something I could do? So I just looked into it a little bit. I was like, hey, let's go with ontology, which is the metaphysics concerned with being specifically, the study of being. Because I talk about being from an experiential level here a lot, but there is a real academic discourse around it that I would like a little bit more of to be able to articulate that here. So I started with Aristotle's categories, and it's just a very small book, and I read it, and in the midst of reading it, I was like, wow, if I was suddenly dropped back in school meant to retain this information, there'd be a whole lot of catching up to do because I have just lost touch with the whole process of making sure that you are actually staying incredibly focused on the text that you are reading and retaining as much as possible by writing notes, making flashcards, cards, whatever, all this stuff. But man, that is expanding your intellect, isn't it? But the nice thing about it is that, again, we have this freedom as an adult to rigorously study that which actually interests us. It feels funny that in college we get to choose our major, but it might still be something that we don't care about or we don't want to pursue as a lifelong goal because you just simply don't know that stuff when you're 18, or you might be pressured by somebody to take up a certain major based on what opportunities it affords you later in life. But I really do enjoy knowing more stuff. And I want to know more stuff as effectively as I possibly can. So I don't know if I'm going to stick with the whole mock PhD thing, but when I pick up something specifically for the purposes of expanding my intellect, I just want to make sure that I'm actually doing that. And there will always be a place for reading and for consuming information more for the breezy process if we have to get rid of all enjoyment and all leisure, then what is life anyway? But I do want to be able to consider myself an expanding intellectual for the rest of my days. So test me right now. What are Aristotle's 10 categories? They are substance, quantity, quality, time, place, affection, action, and a few more. Thanks. I think I got 60 to 70%. That's enough to pass.